Welcome to the Dr. Paul Show. I have the pleasure of having my dear patient, Shawna, who I've known for many, many years. So I'm glad thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And so if you can tell us, just tell us your story from the beginning. When you first started noticing any change in mood, or like how old were you? And if you can kind of just walk us through that, before you saw me.
Well, I think it started when I was probably pretty young. I think I struggled being younger, and my hormones started changing, when I started to have my period.
How old was that about?
That was probably around when I was 12 or
Okay.
so. And then, you get on the birth control, and that seemed to equalize everything for a while. And then, you're on that, and I think you're okay for a period of time. And then life hits. And I think when I was probably mid 20s, and I got married the first time, and life hits, and when I got married the first time, I did get married, and he had children, so I became an instant mom, and working, and life hits, and so you think you're moving along just fine, and all of a sudden, I think then a second set of hormones hit, and you think you're doing great. And so I did attempt to see a psychologist and, tell him, I think I need to talk to somebody, and I need to do something about it. And I did start to take like Lexapro, or I think Prozac or something like that, tried to go down that road. And I don't think it really helped me, but I continued down that road for
Did it make you feel worse, or just didn't do anything?
I don't think it really did anything. I think it just kind of might have equalized me a little bit, but I don't think it really did anything. So I stopped taking it. I just kind of stopped everything. And then I went through a divorce. And then that's when life really took a nosedive.
Did you have any children with him at all, or no?
I did have one child. I had my daughter, Kaylin,
Okay,
at 30. And
Okay.
so I had to kind of go through that process of, not only just the divorce, but then the divorce with having to go through the child, 50-50 and all of that.
How old was she when you divorced?
4.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so that was very traumatic. I took a leave of absence from work, and it was very traumatic. So I think I'm trying to remember when you and I got introduced. It was probably a couple years after my divorce, that you and I then finally met. And you saved my life.
Thank you.
You did. I'm not sure what would have happened if we wouldn't have met, because I was probably at a really low, very, very, very low point in my life, having to go through the divorce. And I think at that point, my hormones, not only that, but my hormones were, starting to rev up, and we weren't, I was up and down, very high and low.
About what was your age then when that was happening?
I think it was probably it would have been like 35.
And I see that a lot with women. I see that a lot of times way before menopause. Mid to late 30s is interesting, because you don't expect this, because periods are typically regular still. But slight hormonal changes are happening with women.
Yeah.
And you started a little early at 12.
Yeah.
So that may be a factor too. But yeah, that's a lot of times what happens is it's a combination of factors. It's a combination of genetic factors, hormonal factors, and trauma, stress. So you had like all those things kind of come together. What was? Tell me about your family history. Your mom, dad, siblings.
Yeah.
What was happening there?
A lot of stress. My father was a recovering alcoholic, so I grew up until I was 12. He sobered at 12 when I was 12, so I grew up kind of with a really difficult childhood up until I was 12. Then he sobered. my mom, very depressed most of the time. So there was kind of this not really close relationship with her, and it's still strained to this day. But I was after my dad sobered, I became very close with him, and he has since passed. He passed away from liver cancer.
From
You
drinking?
know, he partied his life away. So unfortunately, he became very ill from liver cancer, and he had hepatitis. So he had drugs and alcohol problems. So it caught up with him later in his life.
So obviously the
unfortunately.
alcohol with the liver.
Yeah.
And then, well, what
Hepatitis.
drugs?
Oh, name it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately.
Like
But-
speed and
yeah. Oh, cocaine, heroin,
Oh, wow.
everything. Yeah. So, unfortunately, that caught up with him. But I'm very grateful for my dad, because when he sobered up good, and he helped a tremendous amount of people in his sobriety. He became sponsor to many people, and he had shared his sobriety and spoke many places, and was sponsored many young, old. It didn't matter. I mean, I could hear him on the phone late at night talking to people, and there are people showed up at our house and they might not be sober, and he would sit and talk with them. So I saw him help a lot of people through their own sobriety. So
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about AA and NA and some of the other, it's a real good support system for people.
Yep.
A bunch of people that have gone through the same type of issues, and so they know the other person. And even when someone relapses, which is very common in sobriety.
Oh yeah, it took him 3 or 4 times before he finally sobered up.
But the fact that usually, and I don't say always, because sometimes there's too much judgment, but usually they understand, because a lot of the we call old timers, people who have been sober for 30 years. Sometimes, I mean, they sometimes understand because they've been there, and even sometimes the old timers relapse too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But it's just nice to have a community. It's free. You get a sponsor, so you have someone to talk to if you're struggling.
Yeah.
Or if you slip up, they try to get you back on track again.
Yeah. When he was ill, I did make the decision to stop working, and I stayed at home, and I did take care of him in his last, year and a half of his life. And that was the best decision that I could have made, was to stay at home with him and see him through his last years, because, you don't get that back.
Yeah.
And we became very close, and he felt very safe. And, what better thing you could do as a daughter but to...
How old was he when he passed away?
He was 68.
68?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Young.
Yeah. So...
And my dad's 89 now. Just turned 89, and very close to him. So lost my mom years ago, but... it's hard even thinking about losing my dad.
Yeah, I know.
So.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. I was close to him, and and not to complicate things, but to make things more interesting. He's actually not even my biological father. So but he's my dad.
Right.
So. I don't think of him as anything else other than that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So he was your mom. Do you
my,
know your bio dad?
I don't. No, I know his name, but that's about it. My mom told me that when I was 16, what had happened, but she met my dad when I was about 1.5 years old.
Okay.
And
did you never been tempted to try to get a hold of your biological father?
There's a curiosity, because you kind of think, oh my gosh, are there other people out there that are related to me? And is there a whole big wide world out there kind of mentality? So I don't know. My husband and I have thought about it from time to time, but there might be a curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, my personal story, my nephew, my older brother's son, um, is my older brother and my dad have had a big falling out, but his son, and my dad talk occasionally. He meets with him occasionally, and we come to find out recently that he's actually not my brother's biological son. And we just find that out. But he called my dad and told him, and my dad knew already by that point. And he just said to him, I still consider you my grandpa.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, I still consider you my grandson.
Yeah,
He said nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
So,
Yeah, that's how it is. With me, yeah.
So going back to when you met me, can you kind of walk us through like what was going on mood wise?
I was a hot mess.
Yeah. Because I know I have you on a combination of things.
Yes.
And so usually when I have someone on a combination, it's not as easy as just, this is going to fix it.
Yes.
Or
It took us a little minute to kind of figure things.
What were your symptoms at that time that you remember?
I think I was, I know I was definitely depressed, but I was also manic. Remember, I was having I was kind of up and then I was down, and I wasn't, kind of on this even keel. And so I would get very anxious, and then I would be really happy, or I'd be really sad, and we kind of couldn't get this kind of even keeled.
How quickly would that switch from the mania to the sadness? Is that,
how often? It could be pretty quick sometimes.
Every month, every 2-3 months?
Oh,
or even
it could
quicker?
be quicker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It could be weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we call that rapid cycling. So rapid cycling is if it happens like four times a year or more. So average every 3 months.
Yeah.
So we have rapid cycling, we have slow, and then we have more rapid. Where it happens more quickly. But I'll explain later when I explain the medications. But yeah, it's a difficult condition. Because because when you're in the up, it's kind of you feel good. And it's, a lot of people say, if I could just stay there.
Right.
But the mania part is sometimes it's not always good. Hypomania, which is a lesser form of mania, is a little more functional. When you were having a mania, how was your sleep during that time?
Oh, yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
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 So, and then how long did it take for us to get the medications right?
I think it took us a period of time. We would call each other, and I'd say, okay, this isn't working, or I would feel this way, or you were always good at, being available to be able to say, I'm not feeling this way, or, but I think it probably took us a good year, I think, to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. It takes a combination.
I think it really does take, and you have to be in tune, really have to kind of be in tune with your body and being able to pay attention to how you feel, and not just take something and go, okay, well, this is going to work. Maybe, you have to really pay attention to your body and how you're sleeping, and, if you wake up or if you don't wake up, or, if you're doing well.
Right. And right off the bat, I would know is if you tried, we call it SSRIs, you said Prozac and what else?
Lexapro or...
Right. So that's what almost every doctor starts with. Every doctor thinks SSRIs are the be-all and the end-all, and they're not for a lot of people. The fact they did nothing to you told me, okay, it's not a serotonin issue, probably dopamine and GABA, which it ended up being. So it takes a little bit while to figure it out, because it normally is going to take probably a couple antidepressants and a couple mood stabilizers in order to kind of really even things out. And the way I do things in my office is different, because you have to be available to people when they call. I think that in this field of medicine, there's way too much not responding to people's problems, or then it's like, well, we have an opening in 3 months to come in. It's like, what am I going to do in the meantime? Well, I'm sorry, but there's nothing. So there's a lot of the, very poor customer service. So I've always made it a habit that, I return every phone call same day in my office, every email same day, because with what I do, I have to act quickly. People are, I see suicidal ideation, which you have to work with. You have to work on that quickly to prevent that from happening. You have to make, and I've learned how to make really quick decisions about how to titrate things, how to dose things, and you have to. And it does take a while. I mean, it can take months to a year sometimes.
Yeah, it took us a while.
Yeah, but what we see typically is like steady improvement. Like a little bit better here, a little bit better. But the goal is always to get to here. But to get to there, you can't just jump to there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. You have to figure out what to do to get that to that level.
Yeah.
Tell us when you were in the manic stage. What were you thinking about, or what was going on? Were you
everything
were you paranoia?
I don't think I had paranoia. Everything was just quick and just great, and I don't want to say happy, but I could make quick decisions. I could do things without hesitation per se. I was able to make quick decisions and be on top of things versus hide behind things, or not want to do things, or not want to be in front of people, and which is very unlike me because I'm such a people person. When I was manic and I would say I would be okay with being in front of people and doing things, and being able to plan parties or plan holidays, or do the things that I love doing on a daily basis.
And did it ever entail any kind of paranoia?
No, it didn't necessarily entail paranoia. No.
Okay. You're probably more of like a hypomania then, which is a very functional, very functional. Get a lot done. It's hard to keep up with people. People at work can't keep up with you because you're doing so well.
Yeah.
And then but the problem is that it doesn't last, and you'll crash, and the depression can be really deep. Tell us about the depression.
Oh, yeah, just hide. Yeah, want to sleep.
Yeah, motivation low, energy low.
No motivation.
Right.
Just don't want to see anybody. Yeah.
How long would that typically last before you started to pull out of it? Usually.
A good while. It's been so long because I've been so healthy for a good while that I can't remember how long, but I just remember it being a good while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you want to self-medicate,
Like with what?
alcohol or something.
Number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, either, again, genetics. Thankfully, you didn't go down Dad's road.
Yeah.
But again, the genetics is a lot of it, which is why some people, who everything is great. Let's say the marriage is great, everything's wonderful, the kids are good, the job is fine. And then people will tell me, I have no reason to feel this way. I don't get it. I don't understand. So everyone's looking for a reason all the time. And I ask about family history, about like your parents. Is like, okay, well, both of your parents had mood issues.
Yeah.
So if both parents have it, you're gonna get it, no question about it.
Yeah.
If it's only one of the family, if it's mom or dad only, it's less of an issue. It's not as bad sometimes. It also depends on what parent you take more after. So I ask people, do you take more after your mom or more after your dad, as far as looks, personality? Who with you?
Yeah. Probably looks, I'd say my mother.
Yeah.
But probably more so my dad. I would say.
Yeah.
Just his demeanor, but. Just because I have such a strained relationship with my mom.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
But I think that's why, you have what I call a loaded family history. So a loaded family history, you have both sides. And as you look at your mom's parents and your dad's parents, you're going to see history there too. I'm guessing your grandpa on your dad's side had alcohol issues, maybe, or are you not sure?
You know, I was so young. I don't really have grandparents
Okay.
really on each side. I unfortunately
Don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay, you remember your parents talking about them? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So, but and during that year, obviously things got better, and then after that year, since then, have things been pretty stable?
Since we
Yeah.
finally
got the right combination. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the medications are just kind of just even things out. I mean, you're going to still have stressors of life.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of stress.
Right.
Since the stress hasn't gone away.
Right. Right.
Life is there.
Right.
But fortunately, because because we have equaled out and been able to, get our situation figured out, I'm able to cope. And I'm able to, deal with life because I've had a lot of stress in different ways, and whether it's family related or work related, or juggling work and life and different things, I've been able to cope and been able to walk through it and come out just fine.
Yeah. And people, often don't understand bipolar disorder. I have my own story. If you want to know about it, you got to get my book. If you want to get the Corona Protocol, you can hear my story. But yeah, it's very common. It's not something anyone can help because, like I said, you can't help what happens genetically. You can't help what happens hormonally in your body. So women struggle mid-late 30s, like I said. The other thing is puberty. So that's why a lot of times, like 12, 13, 14 is a very common time. Things change. So what you did when you took the pill back then is it kind of evened out the hormone part.
Right.
And so when you even that out, it helped for a while.
Yeah.
Until your 20s,
And then,
But then the trauma, the stress you've gone through.
Yeah.
You've been through your definite stress for sure.
And now I feel like, I've come out of a lot of stress, and so now I've been able to think about the things that I want to do to give back, and, getting women together and being able to get the women, my friends together and give back. And
we talked about this. So there's a few good things that have happened with you. You got a really good job.
Yes, I did.
You met a really good guy who you're married to now.
Yes.
And which is great. And then and tell me about this. You get together. Tell me the audience what you do when you get together with women. What is that about?
So I guess it's been like 2 years, but I decided. Women say to each other often like, "Oh, we should get together and meet up," and then we say, "Oh yeah, we should," and then it never happens, right? So I decided to get my women together once a month at my house, and we call it wine night, and we have a potluck, and we get together. And so I started with 3 or 4 women, and now we've grown. And just a couple weeks ago, I had to have my husband come and bring chairs to our house because we had too many women. I didn't have it. I think it was 11, I think. And so I only had 8 chairs, so we had to bring chairs from my in-laws' house to help, satisfy it. But
do you have like a storyboard kind of thing where you are
once a year, we in January or early February, I have everybody come over and we do vision boarding for the year. So that's something that everyone gets excited about. And so I do a brunch, and then afterwards we transform the table into magazines and vision boarding, and we just sit there and cut pictures, and we talk about what we want to do for the year and plan and do something so we look forward to it for the year.
That's
so
great.
And everyone that's all everybody looks forward to towards the end of the year is when are we doing vision boarding. So It's just something I feel good about giving back to my friends.
If my wife heard vino, she'd be there like that, you know. We talked about it. We were in Pastorobos a few years ago, and yeah, we went to Dow and Justin, and
those were great wineries.
We brought about 13 bottles of wine home, 13 or 14, and they're gone.
Well, those are two of our favorite wineries.
Yeah,
so,
beautiful there.
Yes,
beautiful.
Dow is gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yeah, I think Dow is where they also had. There was a cat they had there.
Oh, really?
They had like a mantle place there. And I was there, and I looked there. There's a cat there, and we went up to him, and they go, "Yeah, that's our mascot. That's our cat here." And he goes out and mouses during the daytime. He goes out and takes care of the mice around the vineyard. And then he goes and he sleeps there. So and anyone who knows me well, I'm a
yes, you are.
I'm a fanatic cat person.
Mm-hmm.
Fanatic, and so my cat Seymour. Is one of my soulmates, I think. So I was intrigued, and I was petting him, and then I was telling the kids when I got home about the cat. You go, "Oh, of course, Dad, you bonded with the cat." Shocking, shocking.
Not the wine.
Yeah, the wine was okay, but I was more interested in the cat,
At Dow.
Exactly. So. But well, good. So anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank you very much for everything, because I'm a much better human being today than I was.
Well, this is the thing is this is the real you. People say to me, "Well, is this just a medicated me?" Well, it's like that's like telling a diabetic, like, "Well, I'm on insulin, I'm on a blood pressure pill, I'm on a cholesterol pill." So it's not the real me because I'm on all these medications. Like, well, of course it's the real you. You're diabetic. You're hypertensive. Why would that not be you? It's a healthier you because now your risk of heart attacks is down, and your risk of diabetes complications is down. So people are never going to say to that person that, "Oh, you're not the real you because you're medicating." And it's like,
there is a stigma that goes
huge stigma
along with
huge.
it, and I don't. Obviously say, "Oh, I take medication."
Right, there's no reason.
Everybody. But, I also am not ashamed that I take medication because, it is a hormone issue.
Yeah.
It is, not only that, but, we've talked about being a neurological issue and different issues.
Yeah.
And, if this is the way that I am, and this is the way that I am because I take medication, I would much rather be me like this than the person I was without it.
Right.
So I'm perfectly comfortable being me just like this.
Well, all these are doing is balancing your chemistry. So the problem is with all the factors, the genetics, the hormone check, is it throws your neurochemicals out of balance. And so all medications are doing is balancing a person's neurochemistry. And so a lot of people will tell me, this is the me from a long time ago. If someone has a really good upbringing, no abuse, really great parents, a lot of people will say to me, I felt the best in childhood, before puberty, before middle school, or late teens, early 20s, maybe before marriage or kids. Life's more carefree.
Yeah.
Or if you're in a really good marriage early on, So when people tell me, well, I'd love to feel like this again. Well, my goal with that person is I want to get them feeling like that again. And sometimes I do that, and they think, I can't believe I feel like that again. And I go, do you feel like the real you now? And they go, yeah. And I go, well, it is the real you. It's just you in a balanced state.
Yeah.
Or the other one I hear is, no, it's not the real me because I never felt this good before. I didn't realize that that someone could feel this way.
That way.
I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah.
All I know is what I feel and I have felt, and I don't know what other people feel. They tell me they feel good. Oh, what does that even mean to me? Nothing. So that's my job. That's why I love doing this job, like with people like you and people I help, is because it's just I like to recreate that and make people really happy from within.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that, again, we're not going to have life stress, that things aren't going to happen. But what the right medication combination does is that people tell me, I can handle the stress better.
I can cope.
And when this happens, or the job situation happens, I don't, I'm able to say, okay, that wasn't for me. Let me look for something else, and then I found it.
Don't freak out.
You're right, and you're able to kind of keep it steady, and exactly, and so, and if someone tells me, I was doing great, but now it's like 6 months later, something's off. It's like, okay, something needs adjusting. Let's do this. Let's add this. Let's adjust that.
And we've done that before. When we check in, we always check in. Making sure that everything's okay, and if we've had to tweak, we have. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I switched, 25 years ago from being a family doctor to doing this full time, because during the 1990s, I really started understanding this subject as a family doctor, and it became so interesting to me that I thought it was way more interesting than family medicine. Yeah. And I was realizing I was making a bigger impact on people's lives doing this compared to that. And that's what kind of drew me into switching my practice over and moving into this full time. And that started the whole writing process and all that. But yeah, that's why I love doing it, for people like you and people I've helped to help their life and help them function better. And it's just, there's no other field of medicine I can think of that does anything this kind of exciting. Yes, it's exciting when people's diabetes is better. Yes, it's exciting when their heart disease is better, of course. And when cardiologists do what they do and endocrinologists do what they do, of course that's exciting to them. Maybe not to me, but to them it is, because they're helping people. Yeah. And as doctors, that's what we want to do. We want to help people. But anyway, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yes.
So in Shawna's case, like I said, when I first saw her, and remember when we talked about the first doctor tried her on Lexapro or Zoloft, so those are SSRIs, so those work on serotonin, but obviously with her it didn't work. So I knew right away, I'm not going to just keep doing what didn't work. I need to change my approach. So it took, like we said during the interview, it took about a year. And it sometimes to fine tune everything, it does take a while, because you have to titrate the doses. You got to figure everything out. I do one thing at a time. I never make two changes at the same time. So what I do is I figure out, okay, what's the most important thing to do first, and then what's the most important thing to do second. So I knew that with her and with her history, I knew she was bipolar. Okay, that was very clear. So and I knew that's why the SSRI didn't work. And in bipolar, sometimes SSRIs will make them worse. They'll make them manic. In her case, or they may help a little bit, but don't help fully. In her case, it didn't make her worse. It didn't have side effects. It didn't do anything. So if you don't do anything, you take it away. So that makes me think, okay, it was not serotonin. It's probably not norepinephrine then. We're probably dealing with dopamine and GABA. These are the two most important chemicals when it comes to bipolar disorder. So she's on a combination of four things. She's on Wellbutrin, which is a norepinephrine and dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So it's inhibiting the reuptake of those chemicals. Now, again, it works a little on norepinephrine, not that much. So it little bit of there, and a little bit of helps that balance. And again, it's connecting then over to this cell. But its main action is dopamine. It's very good for dopamine. And then dopamine in here, and then dopamine over here. And that helps with mood and energy and motivation and drive and all that. She's also on Seroquel, because with bipolar, you have to balance this chemical properly. So I very often with bipolar disorder have people on Wellbutrin. Not everybody. A lot of people don't tolerate it, or it just doesn't work for them. But if it does work, it's a great mix. And with her, I put her on Seroquel because her sleep was really bad. And there's probably nothing better for sleep than Seroquel, especially if it's a really tough insomnia. So again, the Wellbutrin is making the chemical connect during the daytime. The Seroquel is, boom, stopping it at nighttime. I call this dopamine daytime, dopamine nighttime, this combination, or balancing dopamine 24/7. I talk about this in my book, in my different books. So that's what basically was helping. That definitely helped her. Not fully though. So I knew that there was also this. So now it's GABA and glutamate are basically two opposites of the same. They're complementary. GABA, we call them the main inhibitory chemical, which means that it relaxes the brain. Glutamate stimulates the brain, and so. With bipolar disorder, you don't need to stimulate the brain. It's already stimulated enough. So we need to calm the brain down. So she's on a combination of two. She's on Topamax, which is an amazing medication. It works on GABA. So what it does is it attaches there and it gets GABA connecting properly into the next cell. And that, what does that do? Well, Topamax helps with anxiety, it helps with body aches and pains, which a lot of stress is stress-related pain, like neck and shoulder tension, headaches, back pain, stomach aches, fibromyalgia, etc. And again, Topamax is fantastic because it helps people lose weight, because it curbs desire for sugars and carbohydrates, what we call the stress eating, the comfort foods. It reduces that. And then she's also on Lamictal. Now, Lamictal is a very unique medication. It's an antidepressant. It's kind of an antidepressant and a mood stabilizer at the same time. So what the Topamax does, it helps with the anxiety, and the Lamictal helps with the depression. So again, with bipolar disorder, you're going to be like what she talked about in our interview. You get really high, and then you get really low, and then a lot of this. And with her, she had rapid cycling. She had actually very rapid cycling. Rapid cycling is every 3 months. Or 4 times a year. With hers, it was much more than that. So she had pretty bad issue going on. So the Topamax helped her calm her down, and the Lamictal helped from dipping into depression. Because even with bipolar, even if you treat everything else, and you don't, and sometimes you're going to be okay. It's going to take away the mania, and you're going to be okay. But then you're going to still dip into depression that can last a while. Then eventually you pull out of it, and then eventually you go back down again. So when you see, we call cyclical depression, Lamictal is perfect for that. And Lamictal also works on GABA, but actually what Lamictal does, which is different, is suppresses glutamate. It doesn't actually boost GABA like Topamax does. It actually slows down glutamate. So when you slow down glutamate, it also calms the brain. And so that's why this combination, and again, with bipolar disorder, like I said before, about 3 to 4 medications, that's about what it takes. In her case, it takes 4. And she's been stable for many years in this combination. And we haven't made any changes recently, and she's doing great because she's on the perfect combo, and her chemistry is balanced. She couldn't help it. She has genetics issues. She got hormone issues that contributed. She's had trauma and stress in her life. All the factors that lead to bipolar disorder, and now she's great. She's doing fantastic. So, anyways, a great result.